Welcome to the meeting, Finance and Governance Committee. The agenda has been published. Are there any apologies this evening?
Councillors Messent and Muller.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest from members as regards items on the agenda? No, can't see any hands. No. Next, move on to the minutes of the last meeting, which will confirm the meeting held on the 3rd of March 2025. Has anybody got any questions with the minutes in terms of accuracy? No.
Move them.
So Councillor Hogben is moving them. Anybody going to second? Councillor Murray. All those in favour? That looks unanimous, so there are no abstentions.
Oh, I just see it.
Councillor Hogben.
Someone there.
Oh, right. So some of the Councillor Hogben would like. Councillor Clark will propose them, and then there'll be one abstention. Well,
That's it.
Right. Public participation. I cannot see any members of the public present. Have we had any questions?
No.
Thank you. So there's no questions from the public. We'll move on to item 5, which is to review the year-to-date financial position and material variances for the town council.
We're at
I
apologise. Yeah, we're at a very early stage of the financial year, so there's not a huge amount to report as we haven't even finished the first month, and so therefore there are 0 material variances as yet. The report details all the budget and where we're at with them. There's a little bit of spend against pieces, but generally it's nothing significant. Happy to answer any questions, but there really isn't anything to put on there. The only thing I would point out is a little table in item page 5 there that gives an indication of how much we're getting on with. I feel it gives you an indication of the financial transactions, if you like, and the volume has increased quite rapidly, which is a good thing. That's a demonstration of all the stuff we're putting out in the line. It's not a bad thing. It's not a risk. It's just it was an interesting stat I found, and so I thought I'd share it with you. That's all that is.
Thank you. Anybody got any comments or questions?
For clarity, we have a material variances report. It's a budget recommendation, so we've actioned it a year or 2 ago. It's more interesting as the year goes on. Within April or start actually, there's nothing to report.
Right, that's just to note, isn't it?
Yes.
So there's no vote needed on that. We now on to item 6, which is to approve the payments from the 1st of the 2nd 2025 and the 31st of the 3rd 2025 to the value of £357,809.88. Is anyone want to say anything on that, please?
The usual process happens here. All payments request authorisation for the transaction from the chairs of committees in advance of any transaction. There are required 2 chairs minimum, which usually more than that, to come back having checked the invoices against the payment schedule. This is a list of those authorised payments, and this is another form of scrutiny to check that they're listed there to the full value, and it's what we have to routinely do, and then it's recommended on to council, and it's part of our reporting and transparency.
Thank you. Has anybody got any questions or comments? Councillor Hogben?
Yeah, I see there's obviously a number of payments to be made to answer, which now so those have been made, will be made, I suppose, but is the payment actually going to be to answer environmental services, or is it now going to anything that's still to be paid to actually go to Cheshire East Borough Council? Because the banks have been changed.
I would imagine it's going to be Cheshire East from here on in, because their emails have changed, but I pay the invoices presented to. as long as it's valid and appropriate.
And there is a closing of accounts up to the 31st of March on them.
So those have been paid, they're done and
Yeah.
dusted, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are paid and done and dusted. Yeah, these are the payments that are done.
Oh, it's just it's a wording of the the paper to
Well,
consider and approve.
Well, it's the approval is to say this has been done in accordance with financial regulations.
Yes, fair enough. Yeah, because I wasn't certain. So that there's nothing, no invoices paid by as was that are still to be paid because I know I know that they've had to change their bank, which is pretty obvious anyway. But yes, so
I imagine the future ones will come from
it's an
session.
urgent contact was made with me on the 31st of March in relation to signatories, but that's another matter which has now been resolved at the last minute.
Any other questions? No, and that is to note. So I think we've
It
noted.
does need to be
All right,
resolved recommendation to.
right. So we need to recommend this to council, as Peter's reminded me. So Dennis will propose it. Steve will second it. All those in favour? Thank you. So we're on to item 7, to review the following governance documents as part of the annual governance review process. The friendship and twinning policy, which we did have at the last council meeting, but which was amended, and the amendment is in red. Then we've got the customer care policy and complaints code, vexatious complaints policy, and general privacy notice. Do you want to say anything on those, please?
Yeah, no problem. The friendship between is exactly as I said. It's Councillor Yates requested there was a reference to crew in America, which the wording is included in this new version. So that's come from council as a request. The customer care complaints policy is pretty much unchanged. There's a slight amendment on page 18. I've introduced a paragraph, well, just a line really, relating to a vexatious complaints policy, and there's a little bit of grammar change. The vexatious complaints policy or complainant policy is brand new. It's just more detailed in the past and reflects a best practice approach to these issues because it provides more detail to the approach rather than the identification of one and enacting a process that wasn't previously defined. And the general privacy notice is unchanged.
Thank you.
So
Has anybody got any comments?
Yeah.
Councillor Rhodes?
The vexatious complaints policy, which is new, is that been brought on by any specific reason?
No, it hasn't. But because we didn't have one, and I'm aware, I get a number of calls from around other similar parishes, and one had a problem. And when I went through their documents, it was they didn't have anything to help them out. And I thought let's be prepared rather than surprised.
Proactive.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay, right, thank you.
Any other questions? So we have to recommend these to council. So we'll need a vote. Any
Happy to propose.
So Councillor Rhodes is proposing, Councillor Clark is seconding. All those in favour of recommendation to council? Thank you. Right. Item 8 is a civic functions report, which is in the papers. It's like the mayor and deputy mayor have been quite busy since the last meeting. Do you wish to say anything, Councillor Clark?
No, just like you say, it's been continued to be quite a busy period, and looking forward to the next few weeks, which are but because it's going to be quite a number of engagements coming up. So yeah.
So yes, so we have got to do the annual council, haven't we, where we will be the new mayor. But I'd like to thank Councillor Clark for her service as mayor this year, and Councillor Graham for her service as deputy mayor. We're moving on to item 9, which is the information report, which is update. Yeah, the information report relating to the website and communication.
As the F&G committee is the corporate committee for town council, that's why corporate communication sits within it, and the communications officer has done as usual, which he circulates to all members anyway once done every month. The collated report of the social media engagement. It's showing a continued gentle but positive and persistent upward trend, which is good, and the details are in there with the numbers, which I haven't memorised.
Why not?
I thought it would be more interesting for you to have a surprise.
Has anybody got any questions on the report?
I'd just like to say that quite surprised that the Planning and Environment Committee had 14 views on it.
Oh,
Yeah. Rather, I'll have to get myself made up next time. Christmas lights and the food and all. Okay, thank you.
It is a very comprehensive report. So. And it does show that we are getting more engagement. Social media. So.
Obviously, I'm biased, but I feel that the communications officer puts out a significant amount of information and posts, and it does seem to work and get engagement. Generally, not always, but generally positive.
Yeah, from a councillor's point of view, it's quite good that I can sort of point people to the post that we made or to our website where the information is there, and you don't usually get any comeback saying couldn't find it. So that's really good.
That's good. Yeah.
So, is that note?
Just for noting, this is the committee reports to. There's no actions required, but it's right that you're given a regular update, just in case you've got any queries or there's downward trend risks or anything.
And now we get to the really exciting stuff. To consider draft update constitution governance documentation, which I think is part of the annual process for the council. We have the constitution, standing orders, and the financial regulations, all of which are lengthy documents. I'm sure Pete will run us through them.
I will do my absolute best. Yes, you're absolutely right. The annual council meeting is to requirement, it's not an option, to review certain things, and the agenda is generally fixed. And one aspect of that is the constitution, and the main constitutional governance documents are reviewed annually. This is the governance committee, so that's why it's here. The constitution is effectively unchanged, as far as I recall. Yeah, that's right. And the standing orders are effectively unchanged because they fit with the current practice that from now, National Association of Local Councils. However, the financial regulations are wholly changed. The model document has been reviewed in March, or was released in March by NALC, and this is it. All it is that the principles I understand it is a slightly more efficient and accessible form of documentation. I've transposed all and exactly all our parameters, so where we tender and how we tender, the levels at which, the thresholds at which we must quote or get estimates and all that sort of thing, they're all transposed into this. But these are the model documents. It's fine. I actually prefer the previous ones because I knew everything was in those, but they are the National Association of Local Councils model documents, which I'm putting in front of you, with transposed with our parameters and thresholds. And if you don't like them, it's fine. We'll just keep the old ones. These are what we're supposed to.
Any questions or comments?
I propose we accept it.
Thank you, Dennis.
I second that. They are as they are national advisory, and they're not national advisory for nothing. So
Yeah,
and I don't think there's that much deviation from what we're actually doing.
It's not. They're a bit lighter actually. But I
I'm
don't
going to
feel,
say I thought the document was the paper was fucking.
yeah, but it's supposed to be more accessible, which is understandable and positive.
How much step in?
Yeah. Anybody else got any other comments? Councillor Hogben looks like he's thinking about things, but
No.
He's always thinking about it.
Less being paid.
Especially when I've got the interest to supervise.
right. So we've had it proposed and seconded. So these are to be recommended to council. All those in favour? That looks unanimous. Thank you. We now have the delights of the internal audit report for 24-25,
You know,
which is to be recommended to council.
what you've got there, councillor, is your AGAR. The internal
Yeah.
audit was circulated the last FNG, and has also gone to council already. So, what we're looking at.
We're on item 11.
Yeah, no, I know, sorry, I was just explaining. I can see Councillor Clark looking for the internal audit.
Yeah.
You've had it already, and it actually went to the last council.
Yeah.
But because we've completed the financial year, it's a secondary document that goes in here at page 85. That's our internal audit signing off the accounts and supporting his
Yeah.
statements within the
Right.
internal. So
So
this
we're
is,
taking item 11 and 12 together.
you can if you want, but item 11 is it's a bit of a technicality. I apologise, I haven't explained it well. So the internal audit is accepted again as completed within the AGAR. So the two will be separate on the agenda at annual meeting council.
But it's page 85 is item 11.
No, item 11 you've already seen on the meeting. Now, I didn't
Right.
include it for the sake this is 145 pages long, and I didn't want to
Right, okay.
be excessive, so I apologise for no clarity. I can happily print it off again if you want. It's no problem. But so item 11 is item 11. It's proven by page 85.
Yeah.
And then item 12 is the blue document and all the documents behind it.
Steve?
Is there anything that you'd like to report back in relation to the auditor's view? To get the impression that it is the engager's response very quickly.
Yes, we are in an unusual position whereby our audits are clean and promptly addressed, which is nice. I issued all the relevant documentation. The internal report, which we've got, if you remember, we've gone through a few different things. So we rank rated the financial risk assessment coverage and all that sort of thing. It took 4 actions. So they're all in place. What happens for the internal audit aspect of the AGAR is I have to issue our internal auditor, who isn't our employee, he's an auditor who we contract in, who's a sector specialist, to go through all our documentation, and he checks that we've maintained compliance with our internal governance and external governance, as well as financial integrity. And when I say it's a lot of documents, it's about 60 documents I have to send to him, quite detailed. And that went off on a Thursday after year end, and the response of approval came back just after I'd gone home on the Friday, to be honest. So it came out very, very quickly, very clean, and he actually said, "Thank you for all the detailed information. Here's your approval." So it's a really unusual, positive situation to be in, which I'm very pleased about. It makes life a lot easier.
I think it'd be worthwhile then placing on record our thanks to the staff for the sterling job that's been done.
Thank you. I would point out it is a team effort because it's consistency.
That's
You're exactly right. I'm just for a bit, but it's consistency through the year on a team effort that allows me to be able to produce the records in a compliant way, and then allows us to get those nice, quick and easy clean reports.
The last of your thanks is noted, Councillor Hogben. Anybody else got any comments on 11 and 12? So 11 we've already seen has already been to council, but we're asked to recommend it to council.
Yeah.
And item 12 obviously is to recommend to council. So if we take the 2 items together, is anybody willing to propose the 2 items? Councillor Hogben and Councillor, sorry,
Mr. B, yes.
all those in favour?
Thank you.
Excuse me, Chair, I didn't come here to enjoy myself.
Well, yes, imagine. Right, and then we're on to item 13, which is devolution or local devolution, or as it is termed by the government, double devolution.
We're referring to our interest in that, direct interest in that. Obviously, Cheshire East, with its unitary partners, is reviewing and considering the impacts and opportunities associated with devolution to a sub-regional net, well, sometimes termed a metro net. And that is for them to resolve and progress as they see fit. Equally, since the 2011 Localism Act, there has been the opportunity for devolution to lower tiers of non-statutory services, and this document seeks to provide a way of removing any barriers and then deliver some context and hopefully shared understanding of how mechanisms work based on past experience and knowledge. There has been some devolution in Cheshire East. In 2012, they went through a programme and devolved certain assets to certain towns. There was no town council in Crewe at that time, so that's why it didn't happen here particularly. So there is a past in there, but there's been no movement on that since then, or over a decade later. The intent of this is entirely positive. It's to try and make it opportune for Cheshire East officers to find a route through any devolution they might see fit. Now, it is part of our corporate strategy. It has been ambition for aspects, well, the administration of the council differentially through time. And I will be frank, this is a piece of work I did on risk, on the basis that if we don't do something, we could be caught short if there's an emergency. And by that, I mean, if Cheshire East finds itself in such a difficult financial position that boards go on windows and issues come up, it'd be nice to be in a position where a readiness rather than on a back foot. So I've created a document called the Devolution Prospectus, quite a pompous name, but I tried to make it sound like a thing, is long and short of it. It goes through a thought process and mechanism of how devolution works and the governance behind it and potential areas for consideration. This is not a statement of this is what we must have. This is a statement of how it could work by mutual agreement. Okay, that's the principle of it, and it's to reduce or mitigate some of the risk of things being done because there's no alternative. Now that's based on Cheshire's financial difficulties. There is also another aspect of this, I think, and I would like to recommend to you, that there is identified a devolution champion. We have, I believe, a relatively obvious candidate in that Councillor Yates has been championing devolution since 2013 when the council was created, and maybe before that, I couldn't tell you, it's all before my time anyway. And I suggest to you that having a member champion focuses the effort, if there is to be any.
Right. Any questions, comments? Dennis?
I'm most probably totally out of order here, but I don't understand why we need another tier of council, if you like, when originally we were broken up from all the different local councils, and we had a what was it called?
Local government review.
No,
Cheshire County Crewe
County Council. Because it was split up, and we were told this was better for us, which when we ended up in Cheshire East, and now basically to me it looks like they're saying, well, that didn't work, so we want another one on top of it. Or have I got it totally wrong?
It is different. I'm afraid that I can't speak for the change in political winds, but the long and short, it is a different concept. If you look to the Greater Manchester Authority, then the Andy Burnham model, that there is an executive mayor and a small executive team that looks to direct strategic development associated with infrastructure and education mostly. And so there's a lot of transport investment in that area. I don't know anything about the education in that area. I've got some Manc relatives and I'm a bit questionable on that, but the long and short is that's the principle of it. It does allow for some local decision making on a far larger strategic basis. Whether it's needed or not is for other people to decide in the wider Cheshire area. That's not for me to decide, and it's outside of our remit anyway. My attempt here is the cascade of issues that might be opportunities as well that might be created by this if it is to go through, and also in mind of the ongoing challenges that Cheshire East faces, as do many unitary authorities around the country, and the impacts that might have locally on services in Crewe. That's the intent of this. So the new tier that may or may not happen, it's likely to at this stage, is based on the idea of sub-regionalising the larger strategic services such as regional transport, including rail.
Right.
But it's way above our tier of equivalent.
Yeah, it is way above, but basically your mayor will be spending money that the government currently spends. But they'll be deciding what to do with it in Cheshire East.
And you'll have local people or Cheshire people making those decisions rather than it being made at central government.
Currently now we have to wait for everything. Like we want a special school. We want to make Westfields into a special school. We're waiting for the government to give us the say-so to do that. With devolution, you've got more chance of deciding that, you know, you'll use the money that's coming for education to build that special school. So it's got its pros and cons.
So it won't be spending more money. We're spending money that the government spend now,
Yeah,
It's
but
devolving
we'll
that
spend
tier of
it
administration.
in Cheshire.
yeah.
As again.
I mean, currently we give 70 pence in every pound of our business rates to the government.
Right.
Manchester doesn't. We've got a really bad deal as far as business rates goes.
So we can look at stuff. Like
So again, devolution would give us an opportunity to look at that, so that we keep more of our business rates. Cheshire East kept its business rates. He would not have any financial difficulties whatsoever.
But the only other question I've got is, do we vote somebody into it?
Well,
Yeah.
mayoral elections May
Yeah.
2026.
will take place next year.
If the three councils agree, mayoral elections will take place 2026.
Okay.
Steve?
Yeah. It's interesting, you see, in the way we're moving from unitary to two-tier to almost a three-tier. And I mean, it was, as Dennis has suggested, you know, back in 2008, 2009, it was the theory was that all council services, principal council services, that is, would be delivered by one council and keep it simple, go to one place. And that's fine, although, but then, I mean, this council was set up as a voice for Crewe, as you remember. And I think it's a fact that a very limited number of matters which have to be devolved are do lie with the parish council. I think that's right. I'm sure we'll be corrected on that. It might be allotments might be such an example. But be very limited with the things that town and parish councils have to do. But as you know, Chair, especially you know in the 12 years that this town council has existed, the town has taken on more as a broader role than just being in charge of allotments for one or two other bits of that. And I think to realise that slogan, if you like, of the voice for Crewe. But I think the big change has been, and it's true to say that there was a discussion about the devolved services from the Cheshire East to town and parish councils, but that was more or less took place before 2013, and then there were some fairly strange arrangements that are related to places like Crewe and Macclesfield. Local service delivery committee. But I suppose the fact of it is that, like every other principal council, pretty well, Cheshire East is under huge financial pressure. So it's going to have to concentrate on core services, and the discretionary element has been squeezed, or has been squeezed, not forever, really, but especially in more recent times, especially since there's no revenue support grant worth speaking of anymore. I think that finished about 6 years ago, didn't it?
Yes,
And,
yeah.
so, you know, in short, the Cheshire East is under huge pressure. So looking to cut its costs, and the area where you're seeking to cut costs or devolve is those discretionary services, those that they don't have to deliver, which is where parish and town councils can come in. Because we all, I think that's the thing, it's not normally, it's not generally appreciated that, and, you know, even if there's a really good standard of service from the principal council, if the parish council chooses, says it wants to do something at a higher level of service, then it's free to do that. And that's been the case for probably 100 years or more. But it comes down to pressures on Cheshire East Council and things that really what do we want to do as a town council? You know, based on what people tell us to some degree, what services do we feel we would wish to protect or preserve or to improve?
Yeah.
And that's where this comes in. But see also, I mean, this is I'd say it's a first draft, isn't it? It's a first draft of a document to help our colleagues at Cheshire East Council understand what it's about, and also to understand what it's not about. As Dennis said last night at another meeting, you know, just giving town and parish councils the stuff that the borough doesn't want, doesn't feel like doing anymore. It needs to be as far as possible, a negotiated matter. It does seem to me that, you know, from what the experience so far, I suspect, is that Cheshire East Council is rather a one-way street. That Cheshire East Council seems to it knows what it would like to, is prepared to give. I'm not sure that they're particularly interested yet, just now, in negotiation. But I'm happy to be challenged and told I'm wrong, because this is an attempt. Famous last words. It's an attempt to be helpful, both of us and Cheshire East.
I think Cheshire East is probably a bit involved with what the government want to do right now. I don't think there's a lot of the capacity for dealing with what they might devolve.
I think John.
Oh, yeah.
I'm supportive of this. What I do think is that as council, it's going to be a working document. It's going to be one of those living documents that, as and when things sort of come from Cheshire East or from Central, that it will update it. And if services are stopped at any level, and it's our residents who then say we don't want to lose that, it's whether or not actually we have thought about that, we can take that on because it's part of our draft devolution prospectus. But what I think that we as a Crewe Town Council and our need to have those conversations now with Cheshire East and our representatives who are sitting on the devolution working group, so the leader and the deputy leader, and to ensure that they are aware of our intentions and our, you know, in a way, our support for devolution, which is coming through from how we would support that going forward. So I think if we're going to adopt this document, then we need to sort of make sure that Cheshire East Council is aware that we have this document as well, and start those conversations with them as soon as possible.
Yeah. John?
Yeah. I don't particularly want to get involved in whether whatever the government are doing and the conversations that Cheshire East will be having at that sort of level, because it'll be put to a vote, and if the vote don't go the way that they want, then they can impose it anyway. So I think we've got to go from a basis that devolution is going to happen. That's my personal opinion. But from a town council perspective, and Peter has said it, we need something like this, because we have been pushing it through Simon, certainly since the inception of the council, but equally other members of what, you know, where you find some issues like the Crewe Ranges, and we share it with ANS and we put money in, and it's all a bit muddled. and whether that you can protect just Crewe, because they might use them out, not our ranges, but the others outside of Crewe. So when you read this document at this point, there are things that are just for Crewe. So that's what we should be pushing. Like, for example, heritage. You're talking to an officer that is the wide scope across Cheshire East. You know, we want people that we want some powers, and this is what it'll be. Powers for Crewe. Understand for the people who understand it, because I'm you know, it's very difficult to sometimes bite your tongue when you think, oh, it can't happen, it's not going to happen. You know, we did that was, I think where we are now, we built the town council up in a very positive light within Crewe, but we need a little bit more to be able to do that. You know, power wise, and you've identified things in there. For example, a very simple one is sharing some resources with the town of Cheshire East, like in the park, using their yard. Very simple thing, but you go through a minefield to even get that conversation going, let alone achieve it. That should be a given. We should be working more with Cheshire East anyway, and it won't happen. So through devolution, it's a possibility of that. And that's what I think we need. So this document where people can look at it and change a bit here, it gives us basically what we're about, I think. This is what the council's about. This is what we'd like to see improved. If we can improve the town centre clean wise, and we should have our people doing it, rather than just this dual thing, but it's them and they blame us and this, that, and the other. So yes, it does go down its back a bit to Coonamsey Borough Council, but I think really, when you think about it, in hindsight, we'd have been better off keeping Coonamsey Borough Council, and we'd have been better off keeping the car parks, because we'd have had the revenue, we could control it, we could say how much it's going to be worth, right? And in hindsight, it's great, we'll all do that at the time we went that way. But when you think about it, it's all muddled. Who runs the libraries? Who runs this and that? So we all went away, we all got the great and the good with Cheshire East, and look where we are now. We give everything away, and they'll spend anything anywhere bar Crewe. Because most of that money that is in Crewe now is come from the government, the previous government, to do all these positive things for Crewe. So that's so I don't want to get political in that up there. On this document, I think we need to know what we want to do and be able to push it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Murray.
I think we have to be very mindful of what Cheshire East is going to decide what assets is right on with it within the town. I.e., you've got the bus station, you've got the market hall, you've got the town. The market hall and the town hall is requiring a lot of maintenance, and there's a lot of money to be spent in there. If Cheshire East just say, right, you're now responsible for the market station. Bus station's fine, it's brand new. But as it gets older, it's going to cost more and more money to keep it as it is. We could end up with a big financial bit to try and put right the market hall and the town hall if it was handed over to us. There are a lot of concerns I've got. I mean, if they want to hand over the parks and the parks and gardens, then I think that's fine. We can look after and manage it. I think we can manage the parks and gardens far better than Cheshire East.
Thank you, Kevin. Steve.
Yeah, and I think actually, Dennis may have sort of referred to this, although I'm not thinking of that. And certainly I think John there's been a very good example of an issue where we picked up the battle with the libraries, the Crewe, particularly specifically Crewe Library, where one was the Crewe Library is used over a wide area. I don't know how far, but let's say for argument's sake it's an area almost as big as the old Philadelphia and beyond. People come from miles away. But when it came to sort of putting to sort of offering some revenue support, there's the various I'm picking parishes out, but the surrounding parish councils weren't interested. In fact, I think And Mr Turner will recall that, because Cheshire East Council was good enough to expect him, well, I don't know, to expect the Crewe Town Clerk to do their gentlemen to sort of seek views from local parish councils, which, well, anyway, it was done, and the answer was basically, nobody wanted to contribute. But there's a thing that stuck in my mind, and sort of going through this, was a new word that's been created here in this document, hasn't it? It's on page 31. It says the opportunity to consortiumise service delivery for large parishes to support nearby smaller parishes. And I thought that's a really good word. I've never seen that one before.
When the world doesn't provide me with the tools, I make the tools.
Absolutely, that's innovation. This is the sort of innovation that we appreciate. But I mean, you could have somebody else might say, yeah, it's the first step to it is a circle. It's an endless circle. It's can't help thinking that someone, oh, it looks like that we are going full circle, to a larger local council.
There are
But
no
I mean,
new
if
ideas.
they're all sort of, if there's a consortium or a confederation, and these things have been floated already, it doesn't have to be between everybody. They could have all sorts of joint arrangements with others. I do recall from years back when I was a Shellington Parish Councillor, that had been invented 15, 20 years ago, more. And that was in funding of PCSOs. Shellington and Road Parish Council between funded 2 PCSOs for years. It was one of the main items of spending. In fact, that was the only one, apart from the length. And it was like a 2-to-1 kind of ratio. So Shellington got the first shout, if you like, the first refusal, and Road pitched in as well. So it's been done before. I'm sure there's other examples that other members could think about. So it's about a joint effort, prospect of a joint effort with others to safeguard local sources. But otherwise, if you just pick out the 110 or whatever parish councils in Cheshire East, there's vast numbers, and loads of them are really tiny. You can think of some tiny ones, but there are some, which are barely matter of dozens of people. We've got almost as many councillors as the population in 1 or 2 cases. But there is an opportunity there for joint working with others, both with Cheshire East to try and be helpful, and with others to help us out. Yeah. Well, I'm certainly supportive of the principle, the general thrust of this document. I think it is, as Dawn said, a work in progress. There must be an opportunity for members more generally to sort of study it if they wish to polish it as well. So I don't know what's the next step from your point of view.
I think that needs lesson considering really. I feel it's important to have a position, because if we start from no position, then if things hadn't accelerated, we would be really struggling. So we'd really struggle to put everything in a box and work it out. As with all our background documents and governance documents, they're all alike. We've seen it, frankly, with 21. It was looked at in March, and we've just updated it again now because things change and things move. So we're not overly precious that we make a document and it lives in a box forever, never to be messed with. This one is, you're exactly right, a draft. It's a first step in trying to get us started on positive intent to get a position and try and assist our principal partners, Cheshire East, with a concept, and to be prepared should opportunity or risk present itself. So of course it's available to be informed at any point. It's not creative precious.
And how would you like to take forward? I'm asking this.
Yeah, I was going to ask that as well. So where does it go from here?
From here, I think it's appropriate for members to identify a member champion so that it keeps the drive going there. And with advice from appropriate members, seek timing and the individuals to approach at Cheshire East to say, we have made this established position. We'd like to positively engage with you to take it forward, and with those meet and discuss and see if it goes anywhere, and then review where we're at and see if there's any movement within anything, it's a repeat iterative process. Effectively, we go to Cheshire East to see if there's any movement, if there's any point in it. Come back, refine the document, refine the process, go back to it. That's I'm afraid. Having spoken to the same Cheshire East director for 7 years now and got nowhere, I'm open to suggestions.
Shoot him.
Done.
It was somebody else then.
To me, it's whether we've got aspirations within this document of taking on some of these services now or within the next sort of 2 years. This is a document, as you say, which we could produce if need be, or is it an aspirations document to start, especially with something like the green spaces, say, actually, we want those are our aspirations now, whether we have devolution or not. Under double devolution, are we going to go? Do we want to go for some of those things now?
I would take direction. The long and short is, I would take direction. I'm happy to give a view on all of those. That document is the in theory document. This is what could happen. In the past, we've already expressed, this council has it written down, that green space is an area that we feel we could add value to. And public space cleansing, so street cleansing, is an area we could add value to. And other areas would be considered down the line. So if you want a prioritisation, it starts with those two.
Yeah.
All decisions can be reviewed, but that's where we stand today. That is a theoretical document saying this is the process, this is how it can work. We can bundle things, we can cluster things. We must manage the financial transition as well, and how that looks like a beneficial arrangement that it will make for Cheshire East and their challenges, and equally how we would address it over time, because it can't be a sudden barrier to funding.
So it's how we take this from a theory document to an action planning delivery model. Right. Is that what this can, where we would have to take it through full council and through full.
Yeah, I think there's a governance process there.
Yeah.
On that, I'm afraid I'm not predetermined on the answer. I would suggest we get in place a position, which is that, and what we've already said about green spaces and public road maintenance, and we're happy engage with members and get direction on it. Which way do you want to go? We're correct in saying these are the priorities. Do you want to engage theoretically with Cheshire East? How do we go? But then we take forward with a single voice member to take that voice forward to those Cheshire East partners. I'm not predetermined on what can and can't work. There are some things in there that I would be extremely challenged by in terms of if they were to be offered today. Councillor Morris pointed out the municipal building, it's a nightmare. But would you want boards on the municipal building? So it all has to be nuanced to consider the context. Councillor Rose also pointed out is now the right time, so that needs to be considered. I don't work in Cheshire East, and I don't know all of the tones that are there. So there needs to be consideration of all that. This is a first step. I can't be too prescriptive on the next steps until we have this in place. Say, right, it's meaningful, it has a value. Let's discuss what you want to do next. And what you want to do next is, right, we want to go at it and make something happen quickly. Okay, well, let's do that. Or we want to take a considered approach and we'll find a way and talk to our partners and find out what's going forward.
Because these areas sort of sit across various of our service committees, don't they? So we would have to go through each of those committees.
Yes. Before anything happened, I think the first thing is to engage an appetite within Cheshire East where it's likely. In the end, they have to do the work.
Yeah.
And we do our side of the work, which we've done mostly. They have to do the work of actually aligning their service for preparation for transition.
And we also need to know whether or not they will actually welcome this approach, this document. And it most probably, other councils will most probably be asked to produce a similar document in the way that we work.
I think I'm planning on licensing out to the point.
I was going to say, let's get it copyright. Kevin?
How will we present this document to full council? Ask them to take it away and have a look at it and see what the rest of the council think about this document. I mean, there's pieces in here that you can cherry pick from here now and say, yes, we'll start with these, arts and gardens, car parks, and say, right, they're the two we want to take on. Is there any more that we need to take on? the same as highways. You've got, yes, well, this is what I'm saying. They suddenly might decide that they want to make us responsible for the roads within the boundaries of Crewe. So same as
They're
emptying the
likely to go
bins.
up a
Yeah.
tier, not down a tier.
But what
Councillor
I'm saying
Rose?
is that they're things that could be bounced back to us. I'm not saying we should take them on. We've got to be mindful of the fact that these are the sort of things that they could bounce back to us, and then we end up being responsible for them, and then can't manage it.
I don't think there's any
We have no
reference to
obligation to take one, by the way, so we'd always consider
We
it.
don't have to take it.
Yeah.
Councillor Rose?
I think when you look at what is Crewe, and when you look at the first 6 pages of this draft, it reminds us what Crewe is.
Yeah.
It's a conurbation of 74,000 and a parish of 55,318. And when it goes down to say about the wealth or lack of the wealth of people in Crewe, when it says that only 9% of population is between 65 and 74, because we die younger.
True.
So we're looking, and we build this up now to try and get Crewe in a better place. We put money into the community for the town council. And when you look at it all, it's quite frightening, because when you look at the average wages, the salaries, we're deprivation. So any money, extra money that we can get that is spent, goes to government, comes back, then to me it's a goal. But I think I should remind you of what's in page 5, because we have all these naysayers about Crewe, but not really about the people. The people are good people in Crewe. And it says this picture of Crewe highlights several aspects of the town that we aim to improve through the proposed devolution agreement. Crewe is a popular and growing town that has attracted press attention as a top or cool place to live, and even the town that cured loneliness. Like many small market towns across the UK, Crewe is facing dual pressure, economic uncertainty and social inequality. That's why we've got to do something. The fact that we are being called as cool and a place to live is not what is on the sewer book or Facebook and all those minority that whatever it is said, they run it down. These are positives. We know where we're at and we need to improve it. If we can do it locally through the town council, then we should do it. So that's
Dennis?
a list.
Although I agree with what Kevin and John say, the first thing I'd ask is how much money have we got to do it? Because we can't do it with the money that we get now. It's just, I think,
If I can show you, if you open it up, if you just pass it back to us, there is a couple of financial models in there that shows how transition arrangements work, and it provides for softening of any impact on that, but there would be considerations of how to make it sustainable. So if you're on pages 17, 18 and 19, those graphs indicate what financial transition, that side there.
I mean, you've got the alarm.
So
So Peter's thought about how we asked to include some money.
Yeah.
Steve?
I've got a practical example of which we need a document like this to answer. I might have misheard this, but the route between Crewe Street, effectively, across the Memorial Square towards the municipal buildings, have been opened up today, hasn't it? Yesterday.
Yes, I parked on there.
And so between the law courts and its car park and the site of the new archive. And I've heard, I don't know whether this is true, but I've heard that somebody asked, well, who's going to maintain the public space, the green space around there? And somebody or other answered, oh, that'll be the town council. Now, it doesn't just happen like that, does it? But plainly, is it somebody just shooting off,
Somebody saying what they don't.
somebody just
it's not fact.
it's a fact. But these things soon get around, and of course there's enough confusion as it is between, in some people's mind, between Crewe Council's wasting millions of pounds, which we I said those millions. The confusion between this council and the Cheshire East.
Yeah.
But there are things like that, new areas, green space, and it's, nothing would surprise me in relation to what some people in Cheshire East Council might actually do. You know, oh yes, that's going to be the town council. But I mean, we will presumably be open to approaches on such things as it's part of the green space. Going back to the champion, how soon would it be desirable to decide a champion? I mean, obviously, it's something I would suggest. Actually, it might need to be decided outside of this meeting anyway. By soundings, I don't know. But we'll see. Or something, would it be something to appoint at the annual council or
Annual council, we confirm member positions on in where they sit. So there's member representation on the town board, member representation for allotments and that sort of thing. Representation at the Heritage Centre, and it would be timely to have it recognised there, but not essential. It's a nice to have. I think you've asked me about next steps. If it were to be, as I constantly work in the conditional sense, if it were to be that this was put in place, I would seek to consult members more broadly on it and take a view of what needs changing, what doesn't, and what priorities are generally being mooted. I would seek to meet with that champion and understand their abilities to take it forward and their time capacity to do that. And then I think I would have some sort of briefing session to see where members are on that and make sure we're in some form of consensus and engagement with the relevant Cheshire East officers to see where they're at. Because in the end, as I said before, they've got some work to do on this. So we can present all our ideas, but if they're not going to engage, this was done on risk, which is a thing, and so it sits in the background until such time it can be wheeled out and then dusted off and checked for relevance. So that would be my next process. All it was a positive. I feel it's a useful document to have. I feel if we're proactive about it, we can demonstrate intent. I understand exactly what Councillor Rose says about the capacity within Cheshire East to absorb the actions that are required. Is quite limited right now. But equally, as Councillor Clark said, by producing such a document is a statement of intent that will be noted. And I think it may. Well, I know also because I speak to other main town clerks around here that they will instigate a similar thing once I release it to them because I've done the heavy lifting. And that then creates a critical mass of interest that might then present a reason for Cheshire East to invest a bit of time in it because it's a greater benefit rather than just devolve to Crewe. Evolving to the whole borough has a far greater financial benefit to them and resource benefit generally than just focusing on one town. So it's if we can escalate it beyond that, but I feel it has to be established here before I can express it externally.
So it needs to be consortium
Yeah.
Be quiet. Sorry.
Or at least create a parish consensus on it.
Right, so we deal with one thing first. So we've agreed that we will appoint a devolution champion, name to be agreed at a later date. So is anybody willing to propose that? Kevin, Dawn, second. All in favour? Thank you. Now I've got a way forward because currently this is a draft from Pete. It doesn't have any member input as it stands, so I would suggest a working group to look at this draft and see if there's any alterations or changes that or additions that would want to be made. And then I would suggest that there is a briefing for members before the document goes to council. Because there's no point just presenting it at council. If anybody's interested, then they can come. And only when it's been through council do we then actually engage with Cheshire East because until it's been through council, we don't have any agreement to it being taken forward. So, working group can be agreed, but obviously the devolution champion and 2 or 3 others, I would think. Don't want a huge group, do we? Because the more people you have, the more changes you get, the longer it takes. In my brief experience, I won't use the Cheshire's term, but a working group to look at the document. So I'll go through it again, just to get it in my own head. That we've agreed to have a devolution champion, that we have a working group to look at this, and from a member's perspective, that we have a briefing for councillors and then the document goes to council. So we're talking about probably autumn time, are we? By the time we've got everything sorted out.
Probably, yeah. Depending on the schedules, yeah.
Logistically, that we've got August out,
Yeah.
and you know we're in May already. Oh, we're not quite, but we nearly are. So, and then I think that working group would be able to then think about what areas we would actually want to take forward, like Kevin says, the green spaces or the street cleansing, the things that we could do with minimum input from Cheshire East, because let's face it, Cheshire East doesn't have a budget for maintaining parks anyway, so it won't cost them anything, will it? They have operatives, but they don't have any money for maintenance. So, or very little money for maintenance. That may be accurate. So, so using that route? I'm willing to propose that. Is anybody willing to second it? Steve seconding. All those in favour? Thank you. So it's a matter of setting up the working group and choosing a champion. And I suppose the ideal way would be if Pete could send round an email asking for members to volunteer to become the devolution champion. Somebody who actually
Does the
understands
working
all
group
this.
have to come from this committee?
No, it's any member of the council.
I just wanted to make sure that's.
Anybody who wants to read all the stuff in the white paper?
Done now.
How many said sort of weeks? I mean, sorry, how many? I just.
How many people might be on the working group? Well, we'll have to think about that then.
Yeah.
We have a vote on that number.
We'll leave that bit blurred. Right, so the last item is the date of the next meeting, which is the 2nd of June.